Disconnected from chat? Are you fucking serious? What the fuck? I just want to chat with my homies. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, come on. Please connect me to chat. Please. Please. Like, what the fuck, man? Why am I fucking disconnected from my own goddamn chat? Like, what the fuck? How am I disconnected from chat? How? What the fuck, man? Even when I'm watching, I'm disconnected from chat. Like, what the fuck? Fuck you, Twitch. I'm gonna go fucking twitch.tv, like, on my fucking browser. Just read the fucking goddamn chat. Fucking ad. I'm sorry you gotta watch these shitty ads. Who is this? This is the world's worst ad. Like, why would anybody buy anything because of this fucking dumb bitch?
I represent the riding of Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Adobe, are you fucking serious?
To act as the host or MC for today's press conference. We've got a significant number of very competent, credible individuals here who are all supportive of our truckers and the freedom movement in Canada. So I'll start off. We will have, at the end, I would ask everybody to hold your questions until all the presenters have made their presentation. This will be fairly short, 2 or 3 or 4 minutes each individual, and then we'll open it up for the most invigorating question period of your time. So, joining me today is Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, former minister in the Harper cabinet. We also have Sandy, a truck driver I met who's got a beautiful rig from Alberta, and he's here with his family, and he's parked out here on Kent Street for a couple of weeks. We also joining us in this order, we have Roy Byers. He's the executive director and co-chair of the Take Back Our Freedoms group. Dr. Roger Hodkinson, MD. He's a medical specialist, and he hails from Edmonton, Alberta. Dr. Paul Alexander, former member of the WHO, Pan American Health Organization, and White House advisor. And last but not least, we have Bruce Pardy. He's a professor of law and executive director of Rights Pub. So just to start things off, I'll say this. Although our Prime Minister has used very incendiary language, inflammatory language, to describe the truckers in Ontario, the truckers in Ottawa, our own eyes tell us that that is a falsehood. Our own eyes show us the bouncy castles. Oh, I missed Pastor Henry Hildebrand. Pardon me, I'm so sorry, Henry. Pastor Henry Hildebrand, he probably doesn't need any introduction, will also be speaking at the podium today. And Pastor Henry is with the Church of God in Elmore, Ontario, and I've had the pleasure on many occasions of sharing the podium with Pastor Henry. Sorry about that, Mike. But our eyes reveal to us the facts on the ground. The last 2 weeks, Ottawa, downtown Ottawa with the truckers, has been a very festive, very friendly, very family-oriented. It's even difficult to call it a protest when you actually see the people playing road hockey, people on bouncy castles, and truckers and their supporters providing food to the truckers, to those in need, and helping everyone. Tending to the streets, cleaning the snow, removing garbage. It's been a very exuberant, very energetic, very exciting time. And from this, we can also see that it is a very organic, spontaneous, grassroots movement for freedom in Canada. Now we see similar type truckers movements, freedom movements, in every provincial legislature, at many of our border crossings, and it continues to grow and grow. But all that without recognizing, without stating, in my humble view, all Canadians, even those who don't understand this, all Canadians owe a great debt of gratitude to our truckers, for they have done one thing that none of us had seen in 2 years. They brought hope to Canada. They brought hope not just to Canada, but they brought hope to the world. They thought they were running empty to Ottawa and driving thousands of miles with an empty rig, but it was full of hope. And they have uplifted the spirits of Canadians. They've uplifted the spirits of the world. And we have seen similar type movements grow out of that message of hope. So, but I do want to say, in every democracy, and especially so in Canada we've seen, is that government only governs with the consent of the people. This freedom movement, these truckers, have shown that they have lost confidence in our government, in our Prime Minister, and our premiers. And we also know this. They are dug in, they are entrenched, and they will not be leaving until freedom returns to all Canadians. And make no mistake, we've seen it for 2 weeks, and this will continue as we move into our third. Truckers are the backbone of our democracy in Canada. So with that, I want to introduce Maxime Bernier, leader of the PPC party, to the microphone.
Thank you, merci. Thank you, Randy. Hello, everybody. I will read a declaration in English and after that in French, and I will be able to answer your questions after all these gentlemen. We will be there, yes, to answer a lot of questions, I hope. So, today, I want to talk about the importance of healing the growing and dangerous rift in our society. When a group of people feel they are being systematically disadvantaged they can either suffer in silence or organize to protest. In a democratic society, legitimate protest is a safety valve. Its purpose is to alert everyone that there is a fundamental social problem to address through peaceful means instead of violence. Over the past years, the Prime Minister has shown understanding and support for protests by various groups, including indigenous opponents of pipelines, Black Lives Matter, and even farmers in India. The BLM organization is run by self-described communists, and BLM demonstrations in the summer of 2020 led to rioting, arson, destruction, and physical injuries in many North American cities. And yet, Mr. Trudeau went to kneel at one such demonstration here in Ottawa, and the media covered it as a legitimate protest. In contrast, Mr. Trudeau has been nothing but vicious and vindicative in his attacks against opponents of COVID mandates and restrictions in general, and the truckers' convoy in particular, even though they have been entirely peaceful and non-violent. Instead of listening to and trying to understand these Canadians and adopt his policies to avoid creating a larger rift in our society, the Prime Minister has demonized them since the last fall election. He has adopted even more repressive measures to marginalize them and crush all dissidents. Yesterday, one of his own MPs said his government's policies on COVID have been politicized and divisive, and that they unfairly stigmatize some Canadians. As for the mainstream media, they are becoming nothing less than the propaganda arm of the government. I have never in all my life seen so many outright lies, distortions, and disinformation in the media, especially when it comes to reporting what's going on here in Ottawa. A peaceful, democratic society cannot function properly without trust. Now, a large and growing minority of Canadians have lost trust in our government, in our institutions, in our media. They feel like they are being treated as enemies of society, subhumans. These people won't be going away and won't stop protesting. So, you in federal and provincial governments and you in the media have a choice. You can either double down on the demonization and repression, which will only widen the social rift and lead to further protests and chaos, or you can de-escalate. COVID measures are quickly being abandoned in other countries and in some provinces here in Canada. The Prime Minister can put an end to this crisis today. He should announce that he will eliminate all mandates and restrictions and that he will focus his efforts on working with provinces to protect the most vulnerable Canadians while respecting everyone's rights and freedoms. Be a statesman, Mr. Trudeau. Stop widening the rift in our society. End this crisis now. Et maintenant, je vais lire la même déclaration en français. Aujourd'hui, je veux parler de l'importance de combler le fossé grandissant et dangereux au sein de notre société. Lorsque les gens se sentent systématiquement discriminés, ils peuvent soit souffrir en silence ou soit s'organiser pour protester. Dans une société démocratique, la protestation légitime est une soupape de sécurité. Son but est d'alerter tout le monde qu'il y a un problème fondamental dans notre société qu'il faut résoudre par des moyens pacifiques plutôt que par la violence. Ces dernières années, le Premier ministre a fait preuve de compréhension et de soutien envers les protestations de divers groupes, notamment des opposants autochtones aux pipelines, Black Lives Matter et même des agriculteurs indiens. L'organisation BLM est dirigée par des communistes autoproclamés et les manifestations de BLM à l'été 2020 ont entraîné des émeutes, des incendies criminels, des destructions et des blessures physiques dans de nombreuses villes nord-américaines. Et pourtant, M. Trudeau est allé s'agenouiller lors de l'une de ces manifestations ici à Ottawa. Et les médias ont couvert ces manifestations de façon légitime. En revanche, M. Trudeau a été extrêmement agressif et vindicatif dans ses attaques contre les opposants aux obligations et restrictions liées à la COVID. Et surtout, l'action des camionneurs en particulier, même s'ils ont été entièrement pacifiques et non violents. Au lieu d'écouter et d'essayer de comprendre ces Canadiens et d'adopter ces politiques pour éviter de creuser encore plus grand un fossé dans notre société, le premier ministre les a diabolisés. Depuis les élections de l'automne dernier, il a adopté des mesures encore plus régressives envers les gens qui veulent défendre leurs droits et libertés. Il a fait ça pour les marginaliser et écraser toute dissidence. Hier, l'un de ses propres députés a déclaré que les mesures COVID de son gouvernement étaient devenues politisées et sont une source de division et qu'elles stigmatisaient injustement certains Canadiens. Quant aux médias conventionnels, ils sont devenus rien de moins que le bras de propagande du gouvernement. Je n'ai jamais vu autant dans ma vie des mensonges éhontés, de la désinformation, des faits qui sont déformés dans les médias, surtout lorsqu'il s'agit de couvrir ce qui se passe ici à Ottawa. Une société pacifique et démocratique ne peut pas fonctionner correctement sans confiance. Aujourd'hui, une minorité importante et croissante de Canadiens ont perdu confiance en notre gouvernement, en nos institutions, en nos médias. Ils ont l'impression d'être traités comme des ennemis de la société, des sous-humains. Ces gens ne vont pas disparaître du jour au lendemain et ne vont pas cesser de manifester. Vous, au sein des gouvernements fédéraux et provinciaux, et vous, dans les médias, avez un choix à faire. Vous pouvez soit minimiser, miser encore plus sur la diabolisation et la répression, ce qui ne fera qu'élargir le fossé social et conduire à davantage de protestations et de chaos. Ou vous pouvez désamorcer la crise. Les mesures COVID sont rapidement abandonnées dans d'autres pays et dans certaines provinces canadiennes. Le premier ministre peut mettre fin à cette crise, et ce, dès aujourd'hui. Il devrait annoncer qu'il abrogera toutes les obligations et restrictions et qu'il concentrera ses efforts à collaborer avec les provinces pour protéger les Canadiens les plus vulnérables tout en respectant les droits et libertés de tous. Monsieur Trudeau, soyez un homme d'État, arrêtez d'empirer le clivage social, mettez fin à cette crise, vous en avez l'autorité, et ce, dès maintenant. Merci.
Yeah, buddy. I am, my man. I am,
Next,
dude.
we have Sandy.
Fuck yeah, man. Thank you, man.
Join us to share
Thank you,
some
dude.
reflections and thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. I know, man.
My name's Sandy Williams.
We did it, baby. We did it, man.
Northern Alberta, Canuso. We had no idea we were going to be taking a trip across Canada. Myself and two boys and my daughter. We jumped in the truck a few Mondays ago. Anyways, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We bought the barbecue and cooler, and we were just going to set out, and we knew we had to do something. Everybody was pretty broken around the ranch, and like many people have been feeling pretty isolated, pretty alone. And anyways, we threw all the gear in there. Wife wished us off, and we hit Edmonton. And soon after we left Edmonton, between Leduc and Calgary, we were running way behind schedule. About 4 hours, we joined up the convoy, and soon we had no idea because we heard that it was kind of put together pretty last minute, 11, 12 days. Still don't really understand how the whole convoy was put together, but knew we were onto something or knew that we were part of
They
something.
didn't even ask,
When we
man.
started seeing
At the
every
border, they
overpass,
didn't even ask.
Better people and more. And as the day went on and as the night went on, we rolled into, Red Deer at about 12:30, and it was just like rolling into, town on Saturday, the parade there on plus 20 day, but it's minus 5, 6, 12 at night, and people are sitting there just lying in the roads, and pretty heartwarming to see, like that. The people were all sitting there for the same reasons that we were traveling down the road, and it went on like that. It continued to be better and better as we traveled. And to see all the people coming out that understood why they were there and didn't understand why they were standing, but that they were standing with their neighbors, and the ones that were probably feeling the same way, isolated, alone. So it didn't take very long to figure out that we weren't alone, and the vast majority has been waiting for something to change, and the truckers, I think, have been able to give it a voice for a lot of people that haven't been heard for a long, long time. So as we continued on across the country, our hearts just got fuller and fuller with pride, and the Canada you knew was always there, and been lied to by whichever sources you want to say. By the time we hit here, our hearts were pretty full, and we've been never been prouder in our lives to be Canadian. And yeah, the pride as we get here and the welcoming, the warm people that we've met here in the city and everywhere, it's just phenomenal. One thing I got to share with as my daughter, but she doesn't really understand. They've had a pretty good life up in northern Alberta. We've isolated from a lot of this stuff. So, but we were driving across and we had hit Winnipeg, I think it was, and there's a lot of people there. She looked out and she made eye contact with lots of kids and people and stuff, and she's seen them teared up and crying, and trying to explain that to her at her age right now. I'm blessed that she doesn't understand at all, but it's there. It's so real for every single person that's living in it right now. But one thing we all got to know is we're not alone in all this, and we're more intact as Canadians than we ever have been, and more whole. So, yeah, it's been an honor, and the movement isn't going away anytime soon. And each one of those trucks are pretty symbolic out there, but each one's packing with them wherever, 5,000, 500,000, whatever town you're from, whatever, it's representing a large number. So I hope that the government understands it's more than a protest. It's just we want our way of life back to every which way we had it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And maybe before I introduce the next speaker, Roy Byers, there are some other announcements and another weekend of fun-filled festivities planned for this weekend. And we also have a large contingent called the Blue Collar Convoy organized and coming into the city this weekend. Well, this is construction and trades workers showing support for the truckers, just as the farmers did last weekend with their tractors. Construction and trades people will be coming up, and they're calling that the Blue Collar Convoy. So, and we'll have more announcements. Maybe Roy might make some of those right now. So,
Thanks very much, Randy. And I'm with Taking Back Our Freedoms, organization founded this past October. I was kind of trying to mind my own business, but when Jason Kenney just straight up lied to us last summer and said the passports are off the table, it'll never happen, and then the next thing you know, he's introducing the vaccine mandate, which I consider just vulgar and immoral, to force people at gunpoint to take a vaccine. You say, well, there's not a gun here. It's just the loss of job and you don't qualify for unemployment. So just starvation, right? So this for me was so outrageous that I had to work with George Bears, a co-founder of Taking Back Our Freedoms, and said this is enough. We have to end this nonsense as quickly as we can. And so we founded an organization, and Taking Back Our Freedoms, I think, speaks for itself, what we stand for. We invited, first and foremost, Premier Peckford to be involved with us, and he was glad to become the chairman of board of Taking Back Our Freedoms. And from there, we built a team, including doctors. And Dr. Piness, as you know, is a professor of ethics. I think you all know her story. And I just urge the media, get on the right side of history. It's time for you to remember why you became a journalist. Remember why you took on this great endeavor. It's to challenge the government, not to ally yourself with government. And it's really important for you to rethink the kind of approach that you've taken. Just report both sides. That's all we're asking. And of course, with the team that we've built, Brian Peckford, I want to just make this announcement because I promised to be very short. He's going to be coming to Ottawa this weekend. And so, and we are, just to be very clear, Brian Peckford, all the doctors, all of us are here because the truckers led the way. We're in support of the Freedom Convoy. We think of them as heroes, and we are so proud to stand with them for what they are standing for. And you know, the irony of this, these truckers have common sense. These vaccines don't work. It's as simple as that. And you say, wow, these are just truckers. You're going to hear today from a doctor who's world-renowned, one of the top doctors in the world, and it's black and white. There is no data currently, I'm talking about current data, to support the use of vaccines to deal with the current variant of COVID. And you may not believe the truckers, they just happen to be right. A whole slew of doctors are coming to town this weekend as well, and they're going to be speaking loud and clear with respect to this issue. The science is on the side of the truckers. I won't steal the thunder of Dr. Alexander, but he has a very exciting announcement to make that's going to involve this coming Friday, a panel discussion that you're going to all find very, very interesting. But we're going to have a packed weekend. Doctors having a discussion, hopefully with the fine senior doctors here in Ottawa who have the data, apparently, that supports the mandates. We don't know any of that data, but we're going to invite them to bring the data. If they need to join us by webcast, they can join us that way. No excuse to not show up. Bring us the data. If it exists, show us. The whole world will be watching, and we urge them to bring the data because as far as we're concerned, the science is on the side of the truckers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. Next, I'll welcome Dr. Roger Hodkinson to the podium.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you all for attending. I'm not trying to be melodramatic here. I'm a physician, I'm a parent, and I'm a Canadian. Every life matters. Every single life matters to a physician. These are not statistics, they're not zeros and percentages. The scale of death that's been happening in this country as a result of government playing medicine is in an order of magnitude never ever seen before. It is utterly inexcusable, and it makes me madder than hell as a physician to see the rights of physicians trampled on so mercilessly. As Randy said, we have to be enormously grateful to truckers of all people, guys with dirty fingernails, said respectfully, to leaders at this momentous time when medicine and law and media and the church in particular have failed in their duty to lead the population through this and to oppose these draconian measures, none of which have any real support. In fact, the measures that have been used, I could say quite bluntly, have not only not worked, but they've made a situation infinitely worse. We would have been through with this mess 6 months ago, a year and 6 months ago, if it had been treated with common sense, like we've all done with previous flu epidemics, of which this really is not materially different. Instead, we had politics playing medicine, and that's what's got us into this awful mess. COVID is, in a very real sense, a fortunate experience. Yes, tragically, people have died, many unnecessarily because of the denial of access to early treatment. But we needed a focus. We needed the point of the spear sticking at us, saying, finally, Canada, wake up. You're losing freedoms that you fought for so determinedly for years, for decades. And now is the time to rise up. And that's why we have to thank the truckers for leading us at this important time. And it's not just the truckers and vaccination. And by the way, a little digression here. Truckers can cross from PEI to Vancouver without vaccination. American truckers can truck from New York to Seattle without vaccination. And yet to go north-south, they need a vaccination? This is absolute madness. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a medical specialist to figure that one out. No, we've reached the end of the line. It really is a catastrophic intervention that has to stop. It has to stop immediately. No dithering here. People are dying now. Pregnant women are being injected now with an experimental agent for which we have no data. Does anyone here remember the word thalidomide? Thalidomide. That could happen all over again. Look at our children who've been affected the worst of all the sectors in society. Our children, our most precious asset. They've not only been suffering the absence of non-verbal education, the smile, a hug, being made to feel suspicious of anyone around them that's going to last them lifelong. But now they're being attacked by a vaccine that isn't necessary and could well kill them. Is child sacrifice what we're all about in this country, to appease the new gods? I don't think so. And then beyond that, they're going to suffer for the rest of their lives because they'll be paying off the national debt, with the net result being a loss of standard of living. That's what this government has done to this population. And it has to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And next I would ask Pastor Henry Hildebrand.
Let's have prayer together. Father, we thank you that we can come to you at this hour. Lord, you see that there's tremendous gifting in this room. Lord, there is tremendous potential in this room. Lord, we ask you that you would help us, dear God. Lord, as the truckers have shown us, Lord, what it takes. We ask you, Lord, that you would help us. You would give wisdom and guidance, dear Father, to those that are leading, dear Father, to every captain, every leader. Lord, we ask that you, that no one else was willing to do. And I'll speak to the pastors of this country, to the churches. You are late. You should have been here right from the get-go, because had we stood up like we should have stood up, we would have never gotten into this mess. Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God. 25 Bible scriptures inscribed in the Peace Tower, in the Parliament. And I'll yell that out and scream that out and preach that as long as I have breath. We are a country that is founded on God. You will not succeed unless you take God. And I am here to represent God. And I thank God. I'm sorry. I've been here for 12 days. I can't get myself to leave here because every time I see a trucker, I say, thank God. Thank God, the sacrifice they brought, left their families, left their job, came here not knowing what their future holds. What is our excuse? And I want to thank them, and I want to thank God for what God is doing in this time. Folks, our prayers are answered. It's here. One MP after another is going against their leader. It's going against our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister has spoken words that are wrong against our Constitution, against our Bill of Rights, and most importantly, against the Word of God. Our Prime Minister will not succeed. Mark my word. The whole world is watching. The world knows that our truckers are leading the way, and we applaud them. We're thankful for them. And by God's grace, we're going to show the population what it means to get back on the foundation. When you pull the foundation out, the house will not stand. By God's grace, I will stand and speak for God as long as I can. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Henry. And next, we have Dr. Paul Elias Alexander joining us at the podium.
Thank you again for having me to speak. And first of all, I want to go on record again because I've been on record for 2 years now. Definitely 1 year that under no condition, none, there's no data anywhere in the world, no one, no Nu, no Tam, no Fauci, no Burks, no CDC, no NIH, no Health Canada, no FAC. No one has prosecuted a case as to why your child must get a vaccine. Under no condition must a Canadian parent allow these vaccines into the arms of their children. I know enough about these vaccines. These vaccines can severely harm your children long term. Now, this is a blue collar movement now. Omicron presents an exit strategy and an off-ramp to the government, to the governments of the world. This is the way out of this pandemic. Omicron is mild. It can be treated like seasonal influenza. And the most important issue that we need to consider today as to why the mandates are moot is because these vaccines do not cut the chain of transmission. If a vaccine does not stop transmission, therefore the vaccine mandate must end. The transmission issue is the key issue here. And the reality about it is, when we look back now, for 2 years, we've been telling Canada, we've been telling the United States and Great Britain and Australia, every nation, every single COVID policy failed. Every lockdown in this world failed. Every school closure failed. Every mask mandate failed. They have failed in every single thing they have done. And we cannot remain in a posture of fear where we are in fear of the hypothetical emergence of some virus in the future at some uncertain, unknown time. We cannot. We have to end this now. You cannot tell a trucker coming to the border because they are unvaccinated, willing to exercise their natural immunity, that they cannot come into Canada and earn a living. You cannot tell a Canadian trucker that they cannot move about within Canada and earn a living. They cannot go to the restaurant. They cannot live a normal life. When the data is absolutely clear. I challenge anyone, any public service person, any public health official in Canada. I challenge you to come Friday to sit down with Dr. Byron Riddle, Dr. Roger Hodkinson, and myself. You can bring the entire Public Health Agency of Canada. You could bring the entire Health Canada. And you, Dr. Lou, and you, Theresa Tam, who led this response from Canada, you have failed. I have followed you. I have followed you scientifically. You have failed, abject failure. So you come and you bring whatever science you have. You bring it to the table. We will bring our science. You have no science. You have no basis for these lockdowns. And it is time. It is time that the Prime Minister stops this fear-mongering. The COVID pandemic is over. It is time that we end the pandemic emergency. There is no more reason for the emergency, and allow Canadians now to live freedom, free lives again, and long live the truckers.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Now I'd invite Professor Bruce Party up to the podium.
Thank you, Randy. I'll be quick. I'm the last one, and you can get to your questions. I want to just briefly address 2 points. You may have heard suggestions that the truckers have made their point, and they should now pack up and go. And you may have also heard that what needs to happen next is a negotiation. Both these ideas are misguided. They miss the point. The point is that vaccine mandates and other COVID rules are illegitimate. Not just bad policy, not just inconvenient, they are illegitimate. The truckers were very clear before they arrived. They are free people. They are not about to agree to not be free. I think you'll find the truckers regard their freedoms as non-negotiable. And I don't think you'll find them leaving until the mandates are gone. So there's really no point in pursuing negotiation. And in particular, there's nothing much that the city of Ottawa can do to achieve this aim. Now, yes, it is true that this whole problem, the mandates and various guises and other COVID rules, is both federal and provincial. Now, we're happy to be in Ottawa, where the federal government is located. But that doesn't mean that they're saying it's just a federal problem. This is federal and provincial. This is a national problem. So, it is what it is. And it may carry on for a good while until the change that we need is achieved. Second, liberal democracies depend on the theory of the consent of the governed. The behavior of public authorities during this COVID period has undermined that consent. It has undermined trust in government institutions. These people, the truckers and the people who support them, are essentially saying they do not consent in the way that we're all assumed to consent. This is not a protest. This is a movement. It's organic. It's spontaneous. People of all kinds are pitching in to help. There are lots of organizations who are independently working together to support our truckers. And please note, I'm sure you're aware, Ottawa may be ground zero, but this is spreading far and wide, spontaneously, organically, in Canada and outside. So don't think that this is just the thing. It's just a few trucks blocking a few streets. That would be to misconstrue what is going on. People in this country have been sleeping, and our truckers have woken them up. It's significant not just because of COVID. Now, it looks like COVID is the problem, and believe me, the COVID rules, the COVID regime is the most immediate problem, for sure. But this is really a challenge to the nanny state, to the authority of our ruling class. And this is why they're so upset about this. It's not just a few streets being blocked. That's not a big deal. This is a challenge to the legitimacy and authority of our ruling class. There's a movement coming together that says, enough. We are challenging the idea, the very idea, that experts, officials, politicians should be able to tell us how to live. And that transcends COVID. Once COVID rules are gone, then we have something else to talk about. We'll take questions, shall we?
Yeah. Can we just all stand up? Daniel, you've got a microphone there. If anybody wants to pose a question, here we have a question over here, Daniel. If we could get you to speak into the microphone and direct your question to David from CBC. Hi.
I believe it's a huge success. People are tired about all that, and the truckers, what they started and what they did for the last 2 weeks, all across the country, not only in Ottawa, all across the country. That's a big achievement. And I believe that this movement will be successful. I believe that we are on the right side of history. When you have these experts and lawyers and constitutional that are telling the government and the politicians in Ottawa and provincial governments that what they're doing is unethical, unfair, unconstitutional, now you have the population that is realizing that, yes, I believe that you're right. And because of the movement of these truckers, that it's a grassroots movement. You cannot stop a good idea. You cannot stop a freedom idea. You cannot stop a grassroots movement. They will stop. They will have to stop.
I think you got the response there, Dave. Next question. Anybody else? Yes. Do you have a particular person that you want to direct that question to? Okay. So I think Professor Party alluded to that, what the answer is. The people of Canada have awakened. They have awakened during this very, very dark time. What Canada looks like after the COVID mandates are repealed and removed, I think Canada is going to look somewhat different than it did in February of 2020. I think what we will see is a very energized Canadian population, a more intellectually aware population, a population that understands that a democracy does not function without the individual's participation. What that actually looks like at the end of the day, I don't know, but I believe that there is a great silver lining in this dark cloud called COVID, and good people will come together and we will find that silver lining. Sure.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy, man.
Absolutely. Or God help us if it doesn't. So this is, there is, I think, and we can say, there is, I've watched this now for nearly 2 years. There is a great awakening happening within the people of the free world. There is a great awakening to the importance of faith, of family, and of freedoms, and that will be long lasting. This has been now ingrained, and I'll just say, as I walk and talk to the truckers here in Ottawa, and one night when I went out and met Sandy, and there his children are in the rig with him. Okay, Canadians are living and breathing freedom now. They're living, breathing, and being educated in the importance of participating in their democracy. And I truly hope that doesn't leave us again, ever. So, thank you. Yeah.
I just want to add, what is happening in our country is because we have a state of emergency in every province in this country. So that must end. The mandates but also we must be able to live our lives like we want. So the state of emergency in Quebec, all across the country, must end, and we will be free again after that.
I believe this gentleman here had your hand up. You are? Well, we're going to have a very festive weekend again. We'll be, well, the blue collar convoy is coming in. It will be a substantial convoy of service trucks and work trucks from blue collar workers, people who make Canada run. They'll be here. We've heard that Brian Peckford will be here, and the science table will be here. Many doctors. I would also say, everybody, I'm jumping the gun here, but I'm going to jump the gun anyway, just because Ledois asked me this question. On Sunday morning, we will be having a Flat in the Fear pancake breakfast free for everybody in downtown Ottawa. So come out for the Flat in the Fear pancakes. There might be a couple other things, but I don't want to reveal the present all at once. We're dug in, and we're not leaving. We're dug in, right? The people are speaking, right? We're not going to be fearful or threatened. We are here to regain our freedoms. That we can take to the bank. I'll let Dr. Paul.
Hi, thanks, Randy. I just wanted to remind everyone that we did issue a formal invitation to the public health officials, Canadian government, such as Dr. Howard New, Dr. Shelley Higgs, Dr. Teresa Tam. And that meeting will be here in this hotel at 1 p.m. on Friday. I believe it's in the York room. And the reality about it is that what we also did, besides inviting them, I also made sure that we included the Prime Minister's office to make sure that no invited official can claim that they did not get the invitation, because it's the function of the PMO's office to ensure that communication goes to where it needs to be, so that the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister is on notice that you have to ensure that these public health officials are here on Friday, because we will be here to have this debate to inform Canadians as to why these mandates should be dropped and must be dropped now.
Next question. It's over here in the far corner. Oh. State your name. From Eurus. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, they're learning a lot about their world that they live in, and the people they're meeting. They've never been so warm, welcoming. They're seeing the Canada that we all knew existed, and we didn't know it was here. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's awesome. And yeah.
We'll deal with that problem when it shows up. And they will deal with the problem whenever it shows up. Right? So, okay, let's not have cross. For 2 years, working people have been severely harmed and injured in this country as a direct result of government policy. Direct result. We have seen significant increases in suicides, overdose. We have seen significant increases in death from those who are not at risk of COVID. Right? We have seen significant financial harm done to businesses, and we have seen hundreds of thousands of people put out of work. Right? The Rideau Centre chose to close not because of the actions of anybody in the truckers' convoy. They chose to close because they heard the inflammatory, insightful, dangerous language of Mayor Jim Watson and Justin Trudeau. As you know, downtown Ottawa is very peaceful. I am not going to buy into that falsehood, that false narrative, that anybody is a threat or that there is any danger here. This is a festive event. Right? If the Rideau Centre wants to close, there's many businesses that have reopened without masks, having people sitting in those businesses. I've gone down and had some shawarmas myself, and I welcome everybody to go to the businesses that promote freedom. And I will add one last thing. Through all this, through all the last 2 weeks, never have I heard Justin Trudeau or Mayor Watson or Vera Itches or anybody else talk about the spread of COVID at the Freedom Convoy 2022. Hey? They've talked about incendiary language, vile, hateful, deceitful language, but they have forgotten all about COVID. Now, surely, this is problem. Well, that's. I would rather a business make their own choices than government imposing it. That's right. You are here, right? No, just you're here amongst a whole lot of people. You have made a choice to be here, and as you can see, a great many people are unmasked. I've been in hotels in Ottawa for the last 12 days. Most hotels, it's hard to find somebody wearing a mask, except from the media. Right? So, people are making choices. We are choosing how we are going to live. And that's going to continue. Next question. This fellow over here.
That's a loaded question. Yeah, there's so many. Like what we got to witness is all the guys coming across. There's fellows in here that right now that have been sharing all the stories around here. It's pretty hard not to get a big, unbelievable. Yeah, you bet. They've met people from every edge of Canada, and I can't to load it up into one question. All I can say is that we always knew the Canada that was out there when we were kids and how free and we knew it existed. But when you as a father and you're staring at your kids knowing that they're not going to have the freedom that we had growing up, and now to see that that's a possibility, kids out playing hockey. Again, there's probably our place down there over by where we're playing, probably 40, 50 kids playing hockey again, just being kids. And seeing that the hope in people's eyes, that's probably the charge that, and the people walking across the Gatineau Bridge, families offering up their houses to come, homeschool. My kids all homeschool, so they're just a love all the way around. The whole situation, I guess, is what we've been lied to as to what our country was fractured and broken, and now to see exactly how intact it is, I guess that's the gift in itself right there. Yeah.
This gentleman over here. Supporting freedom. Well, listen, that's an unfair. We can't tell why somebody, D&D has a large building close by. People work there. People in the military. My son and many military vets have been down here as well with various berets and hardware. So, who knows? You'll have to ask them. Any other questions? Follow up? No. Oh, there's Russian agents here. Who's the question for? Well, before I pass over to Max, I'll just say this. Let's not buy into the narrative. We know that Canadians are very considerate, peaceful, loving individuals. And as a rule, that extends to everybody in Canada, regardless of what uniform you might wear or what uniform you don't wear. So I'm not at all concerned, and I've talked to many truckers. Nobody's concerned about that. We expect our police officers to act to serve and protect, and I can think I can say they're not impervious to the inflammatory language of our politicians, but nor are they swallowing it all either. Okay? Well, we'll expect everybody to be respectful, considerate. Whatever happens, the truckers have got a good network of logistics to fuel, food, and also train things.
Yes, I was here also the last 2 weekends. I can tell you that I saw policemen, I spoke with them. But what I can tell you, these policemen are not the same that I saw last summer when I was in Manitoba and I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail after a gathering in a park. That was not my country. But now I know that policemen and the Canadian forces, if they are here, and because they work here, they have an office here also, they are with us, and they want that protest, what I prefer to call it a rally, to be a big success. And I believe that it will be like that until the end.
All right, we'll just take a couple more questions, and then we're going to be wrapping things up. Yes.
To paraphrase someone you're very familiar with, the science is settled. There's an overwhelming consensus that nothing worked. Nothing could work, nothing did work, and nothing will work. That includes the vaccinations, which are not just unnecessary, experimental, untested, and are actually killing people. I want to take this moment to point a finger directly at the principal cause of why we're all here today. And it's not the government. No, it's us physicians who are being intimidated by our colleges, both provincially and internationally. If physicians had not been intimidated by the very body that's supposed to protect you from me, if they'd been allowed to speak their mind without the threat of losing their income and their positions, then an individual patient, such as you and me in a closed examining room, would have been told the truth. The truth. They have been denied that ability to do that. We have had that for centuries. The two principal medical ethics have been trampled on by this government. First, do no harm, and informed consent. First, do no harm has been trampled on. The mandates have killed, as we've heard, more people, many more people than they've saved. But informed consent, I would put it to you, how can you give informed consent if you are not informed? And you have been denied information intentionally by the colleges that are supposed to protect you. So I say this, putting a point on it. The colleges of physicians and surgeons across this country and internationally are co-conspirators with government in state-sanctioned murder. Thank you.
Too much, man.
And I wanted to echo what Dr. Hodgkinson has said here because, look, from the very beginning, we knew that COVID was responsive very positively to early outpatient treatment. And yet doctors in Canada, in the United States, across the world, their hands were tied by their governments. These faceless, technocratic, bureaucratic people tied the hands of these clinicians. They refused to allow them to use their clinical judgment and their best decision making. In the United States, approximately 900,000 people have died of COVID. We've modeled the data now. Me, McCullough, Risch, Zelenko, etc., and we have shown that approximately 840,000 people would be alive today had early treatment been allowed. And what Dr. Hodgkinson has said is perfectly correct. The problem here is that we don't represent just two scientists, with Dr. Ponez, or Dr. Phillips, or Dr. Francis Christian. There are thousands of Canadian physicians and academic scientists who write me. In the United States, also at CDC and FDA and NIH, they write me and they call me and they tell me the problem, Paul, is Hodgkinson, Peter McCullough, Robert Malone, Harvey Risch. You people have the courage and the bravery that we lack. But we want to speak, but we cannot. As Hodgkinson said, they would lose their academic appointment, as is happening in Canada. They would lose their grant. They would lose their positions. And this is why today you've had this divide. The divide is not that the truckers didn't have an accurate common sense in stating that these mandates must fall. It's not just Hodgkinson and myself as academic scientists and clinicians who are saying that these mandates must fall and have no scientific basis. We have thousands of scientists, but they are afraid. And the time has come that you must become brave and stand up to the colleges and stand up to the government and say enough. Natural immunity is far superior than vaccinal immunity. You should have said that in the beginning. You have contributed to the failure here. You have failed, and it is time you right the ship and come forward now.
We've got an online question, and then we'll go over here next. know your name and who you're with? Yeah.
We come from a wide diversity. Like I don't truck long haul, do that. I've got a ranch and some construction business in the oil patch. We're trucking rural, remotely in northern Alberta. But the guys that I'm meeting come from all over every walk of life. They're some city, some rural. But no, I think it's pretty collective all the way across. Everybody that's involved in this movement, we've all felt something that was not right from the very beginning of this all. And I'm thinking most of the Canadians it didn't resonate with, but for whatever reason, mainstream media, like I said, we can go on, the boys here have a lot more background in that, but I can for surely tell you that the people that come from all different walks of life are feeling the same way. That something was wrong, and how deep down the rabbit hole they are, that's all up to the individual, but the overall collective knows that this is wrong, right, all the way across. Yeah. Fairly good in the remote parts of Alberta, and I'm sure remote parts of most of Canada would have been probably a little less. It still all depends on your community. But I feel for the people that lived in the high density areas and in the cities and stuff that have been really impacted. Like I said, my kids haven't been impacted as much as some, and we got to see that along the way. But I think it represents very clearly when we're driving through all the cities and stuff coming across Canada. We're high density, low density, everything in between, but the unity was all there. So all the way across Canada, we're solid. The solidarity is there. If the numbers are saying 53%, that's kind of what the government's saying. What's that mean in COVID terms? 80% solidarity? I don't know, Rick. Thank you.
Hey, you want to follow up with Max? Yep.
I'm for free trades, I'm for freedom, free markets, but I understand also why that is happening right now in our country. Actually, the protests here in Ottawa, I'm supporting that. I'm supporting the truckers all across the country. And I know that what they're doing, they want to have a voice, and they don't have a voice. So now we are waiting for the federal government to answer. I said Justin Trudeau can be a statement, can be a leader. He's not a leader anymore. He can solve that in a day, just ending all the mandates, and that will be solved. So he has all the answers in his hands, and he can also be in touch with provincial governments. Actually, as you know, in Manitoba, the mandates will end. In Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan, and also in Alberta. So he must be a leader and all that, and everything will go back to normal. We want to regain our freedoms. That's what we want.
Okay, I think I'm going to...
That is a time that you may remember called BC, before COVID. When you hugged your grandchildren, when you went to funerals, when you went to restaurants, you traveled. That was a time we want to retake. Thank you.
Listen, we're going to call it a day. I think there's one headline that should be obvious to everybody in the media when you go to print or go to digital media tonight. Solidarity is the headline with truckers in Canada. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the evening, and make sure you come out for thank you.
welcome to Selecti and the Judge. And of course, we are so honored to have Judge Andrew Napolitano with us every week, because there's nobody in America to say what you say with the authority and judicial background that you have. And last week, when you were on, you gave to me one of the most important messages that should be heard ringing around the country, and that is, how do we defeat this tyranny that has robbed us of our freedom, of our Bill of Rights, of our constitutional rights? And you said taxation without representation, essentially, that the federal government has no right to tax us. And so what I'm saying to everyone tuning in is that Judge Andrew Napolitano not only talks about what's going on, but he gives solutions. And right now we're in a very, very precarious time in the terms of freedom of speech. In the judge's latest article, Joe Rogan and the freedom of speech, you open it up by a quote by John Stuart Mill that goes back to, he was from 1806 to 1873. Quote, "If all mankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind." And that's what's happening. And we are being silenced in ways that are unimaginable. And, you know, we've been writing about this going on for a long, long time in the Trends Journal. And we have one article in this week's, and at the end of it, we listed all of the times that they have blackballed us. Media censorship trends escalate. 19 September 2018. On and on. Freedom of speech is under attack as online censorship increases. YouTube, no freedom of speech. Believe what we tell you. Another one. YouTube bans the science again. So Judge Napolitano, your article here, well, yes, everyone should read it, is really very important. You begin it by saying, for 2.5 centuries, the concept of free speech has bedeviled the United States.
It has. And Gerald, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you, as you know. Right. When I'm drinking New Jersey well water. No matter what we're talking about, but the concept of free speech has been troublesome throughout American history, and most of those troubles were caused by government trying to silence people. And the article lists a number of famous and infamous instances of that. Today, in the Joe Rogan case, we see an effort to silence without the use of government. We see threats and intimidation to silence him. Now, why do they want to silence Joe Rogan? Well, Joe Rogan, of course, does what you and I are doing now. He has a podcast. He's the king of the hill. He has the largest audience and the most viewers of anybody, and no one even comes close. Joe Rogan also believes in personal liberty, as do you and I, and as do the good folks watching and listening to us now. And in pursuit of personal liberty, he believes in the clash of ideas. So a few weeks ago, he interviewed 2 physicians who attacked big government, big pharma, big medicine, and presented scientifically based alternate ideas about wearing masks and social distancing, and the left went crazy. Now, why did the left go crazy? Because the left doesn't believe in freedom of choice, except when it comes to killing babies in the mother's womb. The left believes in a militant orthodoxy where the government tells you how to live. The left couldn't care less what Rogan's political views are. They don't like the way he uses his freedom, because the left fears freedom, because that will challenge their orthodoxy and challenge their authority. We see that going on in Ottawa, Canada, as we speak. You and I will talk about that a little later. Our audience might be surprised, or they might not be, because the audience is pretty smart.
as to who's behind the efforts to destabilize those wonderful truckers. Who's behind the efforts to destabilize Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan can say whatever the hell he wants, consistent with the platform to which he's licensed his program called Spotify. The problem will come when the left's ability to silence people like you and me doesn't work, and then they will try and use their friends in the government to silence us. And the article is a warning against that.
Or else they may even try to kill us.
Well, they might, because you know that whoever's in power is not going to give it up easily, and if they view freedom of speech as a threat to their power, they'll just cut a hole in their copy of the Constitution where the First Amendment is supposed to be, and do whatever they want. They've already cut a hole in the copy of the Constitution where the Fourth Amendment is supposed to be, because they spy on all of us all the time. You and I talk about that almost every Wednesday. But the efforts to silence Rogan are reprehensible. So let's say the efforts to silence Rogan or silence Salenti or Napolitano are privately orchestrated. Now let's say that the government doesn't like what we say, and so the government asks Spotify, Facebook, Google, dial those guys back. Can the government do that? Can private entity do the government's bidding to disguise the government's involvement in this? If they do, then the private entity has violated the First Amendment, even though the First Amendment only regulates the government. When some private entity bows down to the government and does the government's bidding, the First Amendment regulates them as well.
Well, but the private, they're all one club.
They are one club. I'm sorry to say that. They are one club, and they act as one club.
You know, John Rappaport wrote this article about how we're talking about the Canadian. I mean, think of the name that they gave it. Freedom Convoy. Why? How dare you? How dare you?
Right.
How dare you? I'm the head. I'm little Justin Trudeau, the little arrogant little boy who went into isolation because he's a coward and won't even talk with the leaders of the movement who don't want to take a vaccination. Take whatever you want, but don't tell me why. What do you mean, don't tell me? Don't you know who I am? I'm a daddy's boy. I'd be nobody if daddy wasn't Pierre Trudeau. I was just a little actor. But now I'll tell you what to do. Freedom Convoy. Going back to John Rappaport's article. He goes and shows how big tech, CIA, how everything is all connected, and they refuse GoFundMe to give, if you and I or anybody donated to the Freedom Convoy, no, we're not giving you that money.
So you're not talking about peanuts. You're talking about $9.2 million that was donated to provide food and places to sleep and sanitary provisions for these truckers who are the salt of the earth, in your opinion and mine. And GoFundMe was pressured by the establishment to seize that money and to return it to the donors. Now, under GoFundMe's regulations, they can do that. But what they're doing is reprehensible because they're putting their thumb on the scale to make Pierre Trudeau, or I called him my father's name, Justin Trudeau, more powerful. Guess what? This is going to be the end of Justin Trudeau. What he and the establishment are doing in Canada are so reckless and so unpopular. This is his last stand, which is why he's behaving so erratically.
But again, you look at the tie, though, again, as Rappaport points out, it's one big club.
Yes.
They're all connected.
Yes, it is.
So there's no freedom anymore. We've been robbed.
So if the government indirectly, and Rappaport argues that this has happened because the CIA is the government, if the government indirectly pressured GoFundMe to return that money, then that is making GoFundMe an agent of the government. And then GoFundMe is discriminating against speech on the basis of its content, because they don't like the speech. And the government can't do that, and therefore GoFundMe can't do that. And somebody has an enormous lawsuit on their hands if it ever gets there.
Yeah.
But, it's the middle of winter, and it's Canada, and the truckers need to eat, sleep, and take care of their bodies. They're not going to give in.
No.
There'll be ways to get food and supplies and necessities to them. GoFundMe and the government be damned.
And going back to what you wrote about your article about how they're going after Joe Rogan, and you look at the people that are going after him, excuse me, like Neil Young. This is the little boy that wrote "Rockin' in the Free World," right? And then he comes out against Rogan, and they can't have Joe Rogan or Young, he wrote, to Spotify. He goes on to say, they go and have a big article in the world in this current edition of the Trends Journal. While we always value alternate points of view, knowingly spreading disinformation during this pandemic has deadly consequences, Crosby, Stills, and Nash said in a statement. Until real action is taken to show that a concern for humanity must be balanced with commerce, we don't want our music or the music we made together to be on the same platform. Once upon a time, Judge, not too long ago, artists were creative, free thinkers, and they challenged and protested nearly everything the government said and imposed upon them. But now these little guys that have lost their fighting spirit, they become little corporate hacks and little gutless boys that they are now saying, oh no, I could sing about anything I want to sing about, but you have no right to think for yourself. That shows you, look, as you well know, there was a thing called the Renaissance. Yeah, the Renaissance, when art was the way of finding the true meaning of the human spirit. This is so important because as we're talking about our loss of freedom and creativity, you look at who the, quote, artists are now. These are not artists.
Well, they're becoming political hacks because the government and big pharma and big medicine have created such an aura of fear among the public that the very challenging of that orthodoxy is subject to being silenced. That's really never happened. Well, it has happened in American history. I point out a couple of instances of it that was usually connected to wartime. But this is the danger of the government's use of fear to control the populace, that anybody who dissents is considered harmful and their speech is considered harmful. Is there a right not to be offended? Of course not. But there's a right to think as you wish and say what you think and say it to whomever wants to listen. Those are absolute natural rights that can't be interfered with by the government and they can't be interfered with by the mob. You know, these people that want to silence Joe Rogan are really crazy. Yeah, because the political winds could blow the other way someday, and the same arguments used to silence Joe today could be used to silence them tomorrow. Nobody should be silenced in a free society. The test of an idea is its ability to gain credence in the open market of ideas.
And I mean, you think about who's saying Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young. Okay, man, you know how to play guitar. Take it easy on the scientific facts. You don't know crap about it, Junior. All of you. Oh, yeah. Joni Mitchell, all of them. You don't know crap about the facts. And I know about the facts. I write about them every day. Oh, by the way, you know what the latest fact? Buried in a story in the New York Times last week. You ready for this? The death rate of unvaccinated between the ages of 18 and 49 years old? 0.9%. 0.9%. What is that? In a population, your chances of dying are what? 0.009% of dying?
It's such a small number that
It doesn't count.
even our buddy Fauci would say it's statistically insignificant. I don't want to quote Fauci because the devil could quote scripture to suit his purposes. But the point is, they don't want to hear that.
No, they don't know. They're arrogant little people.
What these doctors told Rogan was such a profound, in-your-face, upfront challenge to Dr. Fauci and Big Pharma and Big Government that those in power just couldn't tolerate it because they fear it will liberate people. And that's the last thing the left wants is liberation. The left wants egalitarianism. The left wants everybody to be equal. The left doesn't want you to rise and fall on the basis of your thoughts and your ideas and your work ethic and your talent.
Perfectly said. And the other one is what you mentioned. The other ones that really want to silence him are the drug lords, because Pfizer expects $54 billion in 2022 sales of COVID vaccine and treatment pill. Oh, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is from CNBC. And that guy talking about, this is important. They go after everybody that they don't like what they have to say about it and call them names. This guy Barola, who's the drug lord, the head of the drug dealers here, he made $20 million in 2020. And he goes on to say, November 9th of last year, people who spread misinformation on COVID-19 vaccines, you ready? You know what we are? It's not misinformation. Criminals. He calls us criminals. And you know what? He says we've cost, quote, millions of lives. Speaking at the Washington, D.C. based think tank, how about stink tank, Atlantic Council, bought off and paid for by the mobs in charge, Barola said, quote, there is a very small group of people that purposely circulate misinformation on the shots. Those people are criminals.
But there's the opening salvo to criminalize speech. If you dare use speech that challenges big government, big pharma, and big medicine, you're a criminal, and therefore you can be prosecuted. That's the leftist dream. That would put you and me in the crosshairs of a grand jury along with Joe Rogan and many, many others.
This is bigger than leftists. This is about money. It's about money. That's the bottom line here. Again, you ready for this? CVS fourth quarter earnings top expectations as COVID vax sales lift overall store sales. This isn't about political left or right. This is about the bottom line. This guy, to me, Judge, Barola should be brought up on charges for calling people like myself and others who are saying that, look, you want to take the vaccine, fine. But here, Barola, you shut off your fat mouth and sold this vaccine going back to November and December of 2020 as having a 95% efficacy rate. And 2 shots would do you. Oh, now, and when you made this statement, by the way, Barola, about people being criminals, Barola, you made it in Israel, where the Israeli Health Ministry now says your vaccine has a 39% efficacy rate.
And you need a 4th shot.
And you need a 4th shot. This man should be brought up on charges for calling people like us criminals.
The charge would be fraud, a material misrepresentation with people who relied on it to their detriment. What kind of a vaccine requires 4 vaccines in a year? That's because it's not a vaccine. Listen, I'm a lawyer and a legal scholar. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. But a vaccine gives you a small dose of the disease, and then your body builds up the immunity, and you have the antibodies, and you're safe. That was polio, and that was measles, and that was mumps, and that was chickenpox. This is not a vaccine.
It's not a vaccine.
This is a palliative that gives people a false sense of security.
Yeah, a gene therapy inoculation, the first one ever injected into the human body. An Operation Warp Speed. So to me, you gotta, you want to take an Operation Warp Speed gene therapy inoculation, knock yourself out.
Gerald,
but don't you dare tell me what I have to do.
It's an experiment. And the United States of America is a signatory to the Nuremberg Protocols, which is a treaty made after World War II. All the Western countries signed on to this, prohibiting the government from forcing chemical experiments on you. You have the right. You want a vaccine, take it. I've been vaccinated.
Yeah.
You want to wear the mask? Man, wear it. As you know, I wear it so that we can get to the restaurants we want to go to. Although that's going to change in 2 weeks, thanks be to God. But these have to be individual choices, not government compulsion.
Again, this to me is terrible. This guy's quote again, Barola. They know very well everything. They just make it a way of living to circulate this misinformation. They are criminals. He's calling us criminals. He should be brought up on charges against this.
Won't happen because he's part of the club of big pharma, big government, big medicine, and now we know the CIA.
Yep. And again, I don't call them big pharma. I call them drug dealers.
Right. I'm being a little too charitable.
Yeah, because drug dealers will do anything. Again, the data's right here. Pfizer expects $54 billion in 2022 sales of COVID vaccines and treatment pills. And they send a lie out. Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, these shots are free. They're not free. You're stealing our tax money. Oh, Judge, one more thing. Pfizer gave Biden $1 million to celebrate his inauguration.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Oh,
By the way,
and who's on the Pfizer board of directors? Oh, that guy, what was it, Scott Gottlieb, that used to be on the head of the Food and Drug Administration,
right,
is now on the board of directors of Pfizer.
It's all part of a club. And it's not our tax dollars because the government doesn't have our tax dollars anymore. It's money they borrowed.
Yeah. Judge, thank you so much for being on. Everyone, please do what you can to spread the word of freedom, peace, and justice. And what Judge Andrew Napolitano is giving us, there's nobody says what you say with the authority and judicial background that you have. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And everybody, please do what you can to support the truth. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
You need to value certain things in order to get any facts in hand in the first place. Any statement about fact